The relentless Chilean sun beat down on Professor Elias Morgan's back as he brushed away centuries of dust from what appeared to be an ordinary rock formation. 3 weeks into the archaeological expedition, his team had already departed, convinced there was nothing to find in this remote section of the Atacama Desert. But something about the unusual mineral deposits had caught Elias's attention, structures too symmetrical to be natural. Just another day wasting university funding, he muttered to himself, wiping sweat from his brow with a bandana already stiff with salt. At 42, his once promising career had stalled after his controversial theories about ancient technological assistance in early civilizations had made him an outcast in academic circles. The hollow sound his tool made when it struck the formation stopped his self-pity cold. He tapped again, more deliberately this time. Definitely hollow. Heart racing, Elias worked methodically until he had cleared enough debris to reveal what couldn't possibly exist, a metallic panel with geometric patterns unlike anything in human design. Impossible, he whispered, his fingers tracing symbols that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The surface felt warm, warmer than it should have been even under the desert sun. With trembling hands, Elias photographed everything before continuing. As he cleared more area, the panel suddenly shifted under his touch, revealing a narrow passage downward. Common sense told him to alert authorities, but the thought of government agencies swarming the site, possibly destroying what might vindicate his life's work, made the decision for him. The passage led to a chamber that defied comprehension, a perfect dome constructed of a material that seemed to shimmer between states of matter. His headlamp reflected prismatic patterns across walls adorned with mathematical sequences that made his head spin. At the center stood a vertical crystalline cylinder, tall enough to contain a person. Inside, suspended in a translucent blue medium, floated a woman, or something that appeared remarkably like one. My God, Elias breathed, approaching cautiously. She was humanoid but unmistakably alien, her skin a pale silver blue, her features delicate yet strong. Long, iridescent hair floated around her face as if underwater. Most disturbing were the intricate metallic bands encircling her wrists, ankles, and neck, connected to the cylinder's walls by pulsing filaments of light. Elias recognized restraints when he saw them. She was a prisoner. For hours, he studied the chamber, taking readings with his limited equipment. The woman showed life signs, slow but steady. As darkness fell outside, illumination within the chamber shifted to a soft ambient glow emanating from the walls themselves. When his fingers brushed against a panel near the cylinder, symbols flared to life. Something in their arrangement spoke of confinement, punishment, isolation. They told a story of betrayal and fear of something the prisoner possessed, something dangerous enough to warrant eternal imprisonment, yet valuable enough to preserve rather than destroy. Who did this to you? He whispered. As if in response, the woman's eyelids fluttered, though she remained suspended. Elias jumped back, heart pounding. A quick examination showed the stasis field weakening. His presence had triggered something. Moral questions bombarded him. If she was dangerous enough to be imprisoned this way, shouldn't she remain so? Yet something about the cruelty of eternal conscious captivity repulsed him. The scientist in him warred with the human. In the end, humanity won. Finding what appeared to be a control interface, Elias systematically deactivated the restraints. The filaments of light disconnected from the bands with soft chiming sounds. The suspension medium began draining through hidden channels. As the last of it disappeared, the cylinder walls retracted into the floor, leaving the alien woman lying unconscious on a raised platform, free from her chains, but still wearing the metallic bands. Elias rushed to check her vital signs. As he touched her wrist, her eyes snapped open, entirely black except for pinpoints of silver light that seemed to contain galaxies within them. Those eyes locked onto his, filled with confusion, fear, and something else he couldn't identify. Her lips parted, and she spoke a single word in a language he'd never heard but somehow understood perfectly. Why? Why? The alien woman's voice resonated in Elias's mind rather than his ears, carrying undertones of confusion and wariness. You were imprisoned, Elias said, helping her sit up. I couldn't leave you like that. She swayed slightly, adjusting to gravity after what must have been centuries suspended. Her silver-blue skin shimmered as she moved, catching light in ways that human skin never could. The metallic bands around her wrists and neck pulsed faintly. My name is Elias Morgan, he offered, touching his chest. The woman studied him intently, then mirrored his gesture. Nira, she responded, her voice becoming clearer. I was, guardian of healing knowledge on Ethos. Over the next days, as Elias established a small camp inside the chamber, Nira's grasp of English improved rapidly. She explained that her species possessed remarkable neurological adaptability, allowing her to absorb languages through proximity and minimal interaction. My imprisonment, she explained on the third evening, as they sat beside Elias's portable heater, was punishment for what my people call knowledge corruption. What does that mean? Elias asked, trying not to stare at the graceful way her fingers traced patterns in the air as she spoke. I believed our healing technologies should be shared with developing species. Her galaxy-filled eyes reflected the heater's glow. On my world, that is our highest taboo. Elias handed her a cup of hot tea, which she accepted with a small nod of thanks. Their fingers brushed, sending an unexpected current through him that had nothing to do with her alien biology. So they locked you away rather than risk you contaminating less advanced civilizations with advanced medical knowledge, he asked incredulously. Nira's expression turned solemn. My people fear interference. They believe species must evolve naturally or risk unforeseen consequences. That's barbaric, Elias muttered. Perhaps. She tilted her head. Or perhaps wise. Your world has technologies that outpace your ethical frameworks, does it not? Elias couldn't argue with that assessment. Still doesn't justify eternal imprisonment. No, she agreed softly. It doesn't. As days passed, Elias contacted his university with a carefully constructed story about needing more time to explore promising geological formations. Meanwhile, he helped Nira understand modern Earth society through his tablets stored documentaries and books. One evening, while explaining the concept of rain to someone who had evolved on a world without precipitation, Elias noticed Nira shivering. You're cold, he said, concerned. My thermal regulation is still adjusting after stasis, she explained. Without thinking, Elias moved beside her, wrapping his blanket around them both. Nira tensed momentarily, then relaxed against him. Your kindness is unexpected, she whispered. On my world, such physical proximity occurs only between bonded pairs. Elias started to pull away, embarrassed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Nira caught his hand. No. It's pleasant. Her eyes met his, those starry depths pulling him in. Your world's customs are mine now. That night, they talked until dawn, their shoulders touching beneath the blanket. Nira described her world, crystal cities floating above violet oceans, and healing chambers where light itself mended broken bodies. As the first rays of sunlight filtered into the chamber, Nira suddenly gasped, clutching her neck where one of the bands still encircled it. What's wrong? Elias asked, alarmed. They know, she whispered, eyes wide with fear. The bonds are connected to my people. They know I'm free. Will they come for you? Nira nodded grimly. Not just for me. For you as well. To them, you're evidence of exactly why their laws exist, a primitive being who interfered with their judgment. Primitive. Elias raised an eyebrow, attempting humor to mask his growing alarm. The ghost of a smile crossed Nira's face as she took his hand. Perhaps that was poorly translated. But Elias, her expression grew serious again. We cannot stay here. This place will be their first target. He nodded, already mentally calculating what they would need. Then we leave. Today. As they gathered their limited supplies, Nira paused, looking at Elias with an expression he couldn't quite read. You've known me less than a week, she said quietly. Yet you're risking everything. Elias considered this, then shrugged. Some discoveries change everything. I think you're one of them. For the first time, Nira smiled fully, radiant and transformative. And Elias knew with sudden clarity that he would face whatever came for her without regret. The remote cabin in the Colorado mountains had been Elias's refuge for years, a place to lick his wounds when academia rejected his theories. Now it served as their hideout, nestled among towering pines that reminded Nira of her homeworld's crystalline forests. Will this be sufficient? Elias asked as he started a fire in the stone hearth. 3 days of tense travel, desert to airport to rental car to wilderness, had left them both exhausted. Nira stood by the window, her silver-blue skin catching the late afternoon sunlight. Your atmosphere is so dense, she observed. But yes, this elevation helps. It's closer to what I'm accustomed to. 2 weeks passed in unexpected domesticity. Elias taught Nira about Earth customs, technology, and history, while she shared knowledge of interstellar civilizations that confirmed his most outlandish theories. Their evenings stretched into nights of conversation that gradually shifted from academic to personal. "What is it like?" Elias asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching a meteor shower, "to live for centuries?" Neera's laugh was melodic. "I'm considered quite young among my kind, barely 300 of your years." She turned toward him, her star-filled eyes reflecting the night sky. "Time moves differently when you have so much of it. Until recently, I never understood urgency." "And now?" Elias asked, acutely aware of how close they sat. "Now I understand that some moments matter more than centuries." Her hand found his, cool fingers intertwining with his warm ones. That night marked a change. The casual touches that had become common between them lingered longer. The air around them seemed charged with possibilities neither dared name. The morning Neera emerged from her room wearing one of his flannel shirts as a makeshift dress. Elias nearly dropped the coffee pot. The sight of her, alien yet so familiar, stirred something primal in him. "Is this inappropriate?" she asked, misinterpreting his reaction. "Your cultural norms regarding clothing are still confusing." "No," he managed. "It's fine. You look beautiful." A slight purple flush colored her cheeks as she smiled. A subjective assessment, but appreciated. Later that day, while Elias chopped firewood, Neera suddenly froze beside him. Her hands flew to the metallic band still encircling her neck. "They're close," she whispered. "The Seekers. They've traced the resonance signature." "How long do we have?" "Hours. Perhaps less." Fear flashed across her face. "Elias, you should leave. They have no quarrel with you if you abandon me now." Instead of answering, Elias took her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. The gesture was impulsive, driven by weeks of growing attachment and the sudden threat of separation. "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly. What began as comfort transformed as Neera leaned into his touch. Their first kiss was tentative, a bridge between species, between worlds. The second obliterated such distinctions entirely. They barely made it inside the cabin before clothing became an unnecessary barrier. Neera's skin shimmered beneath his touch, warming wherever his fingers traced. When they finally came together on his bed, the experience transcended physical pleasure, memories, emotions, and sensations flowed between them as if their nervous systems had merged. "This is how my people bond," Neera gasped against his neck. Complete openness. Afterward, as they lay entwined, Elias understood the gravity of what had happened. This wasn't casual intimacy, it was a biological connection his human mind could barely comprehend. "What happens now?" he asked. Before Neera could answer, the cabin's windows blazed with blinding light. Outside, a craft unlike anything human technology could create descended into the clearing. "Now," Neera said, her voice newly resolute as she rose and pulled Elias to his feet. "I show you why they truly imprisoned me." She placed her palm against his chest, directly over his heart. The metallic bands on her wrists pulsed, and Elias felt a surge of energy flowing between them. "What others don't understand," she whispered as footsteps approached the cabin door, "is that the gift is most powerful when freely shared." The cabin door burst open with a blast of energy that splintered wood in all directions. Through the settling dust stepped three figures, humanoid like Neera but taller, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. They wore no visible technology, yet Elias sensed tremendous power contained in their slender forms. "Guardian Neera," spoke the foremost figure, voice resonating with harmonic undertones. "You have violated your sentence and contaminated another world." Neera stood protectively in front of Elias, her posture defiant. "Sentinel Vax, still enforcing laws you know are wrong." The alien, Vax, regarded Elias with eyes that contained spiraling nebulae. "This primitive has bonded with you. The corruption is worse than we feared." "He freed me because he recognized injustice," Neera countered. "Something our supposedly advanced civilization has forgotten." Vax gestured to his companions. "Secure them both. The human will be studied and cleansed." "Wait." Elias stepped forward, surprising everyone, including himself. "What exactly are you afraid she'll share? What gift is so dangerous?" The sentinels exchanged glances. Vax's expression revealed reluctant respect for Elias's directness. "Our species carries the genomic knowledge of universal healing," Vax explained coldly. "Neera holds the most complete version. She can cure any biological ailment." If shared prematurely with developing species, it disrupts natural evolution and inevitably leads to catastrophe. That's theoretical, Nira interjected. Based on simulations, not evidence. Because we've never allowed the experiment. Vax countered. Elias's scientific mind raced. You're talking about evolutionary pressure. You think without disease, species become weak. Precisely, Vax nodded. Biological and social collapse follows within generations. That's assuming the knowledge is applied universally without wisdom, Elias argued. What about selective application? Compassionate use? While they debated, Nira's hand sought Elias's, fingers intertwining. Through their bond, he sensed her intent. She was transferring something to him, using their connection to circumvent her people's safeguards. Suddenly, Elias's mind flooded with information, biochemical structures, energy patterns, healing techniques that operated on quantum levels. The transfer was overwhelming, causing him to sway on his feet. Stop her, Vax commanded, but the sentinels hesitated, clearly unprepared for this development. Too late, Nira announced. What was mine is now shared. The gift exists in 2 species now. Vax's face contorted with rage. You've doomed them. No, Elias gasped, still processing the knowledge cascading through his consciousness. She's trusted us with choice. The room fell silent. Even the sentinels seemed uncertain, their absolute conviction shaken by this unprecedented situation. There is another way, Nira said softly. Let us prove the simulation's wrong. Give us 1 human lifetime to demonstrate that healing knowledge, properly guided, strengthens rather than weakens. Vax studied them both, ancient eyes calculating possibilities. The conclave will never approve. Then don't tell them, Elias suggested. 1 experiment, off the records. If we fail, you were right all along. The sentinels conferred in their musical language, the conversation growing heated at times. Finally, Vax turned back to them. 1 lifetime is lifetime, he said, pointing at Elias. Limited application, carefully documented results. At the first sign of ecological or social disruption, we terminate the experiment. Agreed, Nira said before Elias could respond. As suddenly as they had arrived, the sentinels departed, leaving the destroyed cabin door as the only evidence of their presence. Elias collapsed onto the sofa, mind still reeling from the knowledge transfer. Did you know they would agree? Nira joined him, her fingers gently brushing his temple where a headache was forming. At her touch, the pain immediately subsided. I hoped, she admitted. Vax was my mentor before he became my jailer. He has more compassion than he admits. The knowledge you gave me. It's incredible, but incomplete, Elias noted. Nira's eyes softened. The full transfer requires a deeper bond. A permanent one. Like marriage? Elias asked. More binding, she replied. Our neural patterns would harmonize permanently. You would remain human, but changed. And I would be forever tied to your world. Elias took her hands, marveling at how quickly the impossible had become his new normal. Is that what you want? Her star-filled eyes met his. I've waited centuries for someone who would see me as more than a repository of knowledge. Who would ask what I want instead of telling me my duty. That night, their lovemaking transcended their previous connection, reaching a level where boundaries between separate beings blurred entirely. As their bodies joined, Nira guided Elias through a series of mental exercises that opened channels between them that human neurology had never evolved to access. At the moment of greatest intimacy, the metallic bands that had bound Nira for centuries finally dissolved, their particles absorbing into both their bodies, sealing their connection across the stars. 1 year later, a small clinic opened in a remote Appalachian community ravaged by cancer clusters from industrial pollution. The facility had no sign, accepting patients only through a careful referral network. Local doctors spoke in hushed tones about miracle recoveries and unexplainable remissions. Dr. Elias Morgan and his research partner, the exotic Dr. Nira Morgan from Northern Europe, maintained a deliberately low profile. Their treatment protocols combined conventional medicine with techniques that visiting specialists could never quite replicate. The cellular regeneration rate is impossible, muttered Dr. Farhad Karim, an oncologist who had referred his most hopeless case, a 7-year-old with aggressive leukemia. He watched through an observation window as Elias and Nira worked in tandem, their hands moving in precise, synchronized patterns over the sleeping child. Not impossible, Elias corrected when they finished. Just beyond current medical paradigms. That evening, after their last patient departed, Nira stretched languorously on their living quarters sofa, her slightly blue-tinted skin catching the firelight. The past year had been exhausting but fulfilling. 27 terminal cases treated, 27 lives extended. Vax's quarterly inspection is tomorrow, she reminded Elias, who was reviewing patient files. I know. The reports are ready. He closed his laptop and joined her, automatically reaching for the mental connection they now shared permanently. Through it flowed constant awareness of each other's emotions and physical states, an intimacy beyond what most humans could comprehend. Are you still happy with our arrangement? Nira asked suddenly. This limited approach, when we could be treating thousands? Elias considered before answering. Their agreement with the sentinels restricted them to treating only those who would certainly die without intervention, and only in numbers small enough to avoid statistical detection. I think of it as responsible stewardship, he said finally. We're proving that healing doesn't have to corrupt natural development if applied with wisdom. Nira's smile contained both sadness and hope. On my world, I was considered dangerously radical. Here, I'm frustratingly conservative with her gift. Perfect balance, Elias teased, kissing her temple. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a soft chime. The perimeter alert. Expecting Vax, they were surprised when the scanner revealed a human visitor instead. Dr. Kareem stood at their door, eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion or tears. I know it's late, he apologized, but I need to understand how you saved Sophia. Elias and Nira exchanged a glance, sharing thoughts without words. Here was the real challenge of their experiment, not just healing bodies, but gradually preparing human consciousness for knowledge that could elevate or destroy civilization. Come in, Nira said warmly. We can't tell you everything, but perhaps we can show you enough. As dawn broke over the mountains, Dr. Kareem left with more questions than answers, but also with a new perspective. He would become the first of a carefully selected network of physicians they would partially train over the coming decades. That afternoon, Vax arrived as scheduled, materializing in their living room with his usual lack of ceremony. Your data is compelling, he admitted after reviewing their reports. No ecological disruptions, no dependency patterns forming in patients. Told you so, Nira said with the satisfaction of someone vindicated after centuries. Wonder means nothing in evolutionary terms, Vax reminded her. But the experiment may continue. After he departed, Elias and Nira walked to their favorite ridge overlooking the valley. The autumn leaves blazed with color, a beauty that still captivated Nira after a year on Earth. Do you ever regret being bound to this world? Elias asked. To me. Nira took his hand, sending waves of emotion through their connection that needed no translation. I was imprisoned for believing different worlds could learn from each other. Now I live that belief every day. She placed his hand on her abdomen, where the slightest curve was beginning to show. And soon, our child will embody it. Elias's eyes widened in shock. How is that biologically possible? The same way everything between us has been possible, she laughed. Adaptation. Connection. Trust. As the sunset painted the sky in colors that reminded Nira of her homeworld's twin suns, they stood entwined, representatives of two civilizations, architects of a bridge between worlds, guardians of a gift that could change everything. What do we name a child who belongs to two stars? Elias wondered. Nira smiled, looking upward. Something that honors both journeys, both hearts. Above them, the first evening star appeared, a distant point of light that Nira recognized as her ancestral solar system, visible now only because they were looking for it together.